Hi everybody and welcome back to the painting channel. Today it's a watercolor sky for you. So let's jump straight in and see what happens. Okay, for this one I decided not to start with any drawing at all. I just want to wet the paper down so far and let's just see what happens. I'm just going to give a fairly liberal wetting over with a brush, and I'm going to take a line that comes pretty close to the bottom but not too far, and that will be as much as I want to do. Now I've got to get my sky in here, and there's a hair there, get that out of the way, and we're pretty wet. Poor old brush is suffering. So there we are. Nice, and that'll do. Okay, now I'm going to start dropping some colour in, and I've got some old colour on the palette which I'm going to just use up, and just suggest by dropping in a little bit of pigment, a little bit of warm colour to start with. And I just want to look, it's radiating out, the clouds are coming at me, and I just wanted to suggest that. So I'm just putting this lovely suggestion, and I can go over as much of this as I want to further on. But it's just a suggestion. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as the photograph. It is merely an indication, and the photo is merely a guide. So that's what this is all about. It's just to show you one way of creating a wonderful sky. I'm going to put a little bit of hard edge through there just to suggest there's a bit of light coming in there. It's quite useful. And leave that as our first wash, and suggest that comes right the way down to the horizon. Now you can see where my horizon is. We can leave that like so. I'm going to let that dry and we'll come back shortly and we'll carry on. Okay, we're back. I didn't let this dry out totally, just took the major wetness off of it. So I'm going to come back in now, and I'm going to use a favourite colour, which is my Indigo Blue, and I'm going to put some of that into this and just shift it from the warm maybe to the slightly bluer, and we're going to start this process again. We're just going to pop some colour in. You can see how the painting is still a little bit damp. I'm using 300-pound paper, which is great, because it gives me this versatility to be able to work on longer into this painting itself. So I'm just going to watch that I don't overdo anything too much. That's a little bit too much of the blue. Let's come in here with this nice heavy bank of colour down here. Now I did want this a little drier, and I'm not sure if I've done it. I don't think I have. There's a little bit more bleed than I'd liked, but I want that to bleed down to the horizon and suggest the sort of rain that's dropping at the midpoint there, and take that back out over here. Nice hard edges on some of these across, and scratch and allow the coarseness of the paper, the rough paper, to create that lovely broken edge like so. It's just a nice way of deal with that and have that happen. Take that off to the top in one or two places, not entirely, and you're getting that lovely feel to this heavy storm cloud. I actually painted this in oil a little while ago, and it was a fun painting to make. Right, there we go. I don't want too much, it's just a suggestion. I don't want to make it too heavy because the ground is going to be heavier still. So we're pretty much done. I'm going to drop one or two extra darks in here, a bit more indigo. I'm going to come down on the size of brush to a smaller round just for the final parts. A bit more indigo, a little bit of Indian red into there just to shift it from the pure blue, and I'm going to drop some pigments in one or two places here where the cloud is just a little heavier and the paper is just starting to dry up, which is quite nice. It's all about seeing how wet your paper is before you drop more in. The wetter, the more it will spread. And if you don't want the spread too much, then allow that little time between the two where the paper is just significantly wet enough to make the paint move like it's doing now, but not totally wet that one pigment just completely disperses within another one. It's not quite what you want to do, but you can see how the heavier weight paper here is allowing much more addition of pigment, and it's staying wetter longer, allowing me more working time. I'm going to bring that dart into there, and just taking, I want to put some out through here. Just going to add a little bit more dark, a little bit more Indian red, a little bit more indigo, not too much. Can easily overdo it. And where this goes light and dark in here, I just want to sort of suggest and use those passages of lights and darks just to give me a little bit more shadow underneath the cloud and coming into the lighter forms. Quite hard edges. One could have softened those, and I probably can by taking out the moisture out of my brush and just gently running across there. We can, before it really dries up, just tease that out. Probably gone a little too far for doing that, so I'm best leaving that alone. Just that little hard edge, probably wish I hadn't have done that, to be quite honest with you. It's not the end of the world. We can quite easily overcome that by just going over like so. Now if we want to do the same thing again while this is still wet, now is the time to gently caress over the top and soften the lead edge on there. Any hard edge you can compensate just by coming in with a bit darker. It wasn't a heavy mark that you left, or that I left, so it's really easy to overcome such things. Just try and prevent them is always better. Okay, I want to put a bit more Cobalt Blue into that mix now. Coming down into the bottom part of this cloud, I'm going to come in with a heavier mark through here. It's still very, very wet there, so I've got to be a little careful. Okay, so I'm going to stop and let that just dry up a little bit. I think is probably the safest thing to do. Just 1 or 2 taps in here. Slightly heavier pigment in 1 or 2 places, just to add weight to this cloud that's coming up, and add some more into here. Don't forget, everything you do is going to dry up lighter, so sometimes it's worth trying to put in much more pigment than you think, because it will come up a little lighter. Now what I'm also doing is taking these clouds off the top edge of the paper, and that suggests that they are that much, they're coming right over. If they end before the paper gives out, then there's a sense that that's all there is, but here I'm giving you the sense that there is actually more, and if you could pan this up you would see much more cloud. So it's a nice little way of adding the power of everything coming toward you. Okay, there's a nice pale through the center there, which is worth keeping hold of. I don't want to put too much on the outer sides on here or here, and I do need this to dry up a little bit. So I am just going to work into some of this. A bit more blue, a little bit more indigo, and we're staying on the cooler side now as we come in here, and I'm going to work this area quite heavily and then dry it up, taking it right the way off through here like so, and up into there. Let some of this come and drain down into that. Just trying to find a lack of joining, as it were, so that we get no hard edges. So I'm going to just bring that down, let that float into this pigment here, so that when they dry up there's no hard edges. At least we hope there's none. Now that's come all the way down through there, so what I might do is just try and clean off some of that. Clean out my brush, gently lose some of this in here, lifting some of this back out. Keep your brush nice and clean and keep it quite dry. Dampness is the key. Soften that, take it all the way down through there and towards where the rain is dropping. So you get a sense that there's a lot more there, but it's a lot lighter, not so heavy. Same here, while you can, just take some of that out and lift, and that way you've got a nice sense of the dark part of the rain just in there. Okay, And that's all it needs to do. That clean brush, because that got a little dirty again there. Like that. Alright, I live with that, that's quite fine. I like some of these bleeds as well, quite interesting. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to let that dry. Whether or not I come back in and put another layer in there, I'm not too sure. I quite like what it's doing. Although it suggests a very hard edge in the photo, I quite like the slight diffusion here. So I'm actually going to live with that. And I'm going to go straight in now with some indigo and some transparent orange and make my classic dark, but a dark dirty green. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to literally lay in the foreground and the middle ground, the horizon line. There's some nice trees up there which I'm going to put in, of course, but I just want to get the basis of this in. That's going to bleed together quite nicely. I like the sound of that, but I don't want to do too much into wet. So I want my edges of my trees to be quite stark against the sky. And I'm going to make them quite warm, quite dark. So there we are, nice shapes in here. And just suggestion. By doing just the suggestion, your brain will make what it will of all these marks working into the background. So I'm just leaving that little bit of white line through there, which works quite nicely. Bring that up into one or two of these places. That might have been a mistake where it's touching that colour. Probably ideal. I would have left it to dry more, but I think we're okay. We can get away with this. This is just a demonstration for you to see how I would tackle this sky very quickly, just to give it an idea, and just come down in here with a couple of marks. Maybe a little bit more orange, warmth in there. Take that down. There we go. Take that out. And it's pretty much jobbed. We just wanted to describe the lovely sky above. And I'll put the photograph up during the course of this so you can get an idea of what and how it looked. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be exactly as the photograph. I'm just dropping one or two other bits of darker information against this orange just to suggest a contour or something running through a field, just to break up the immediate foreground so it's not all one colour. But I have just used darker versions of the oranges and the blue, i.e. transparent orange and the indigo colour. That's all I've used for the whole of this area, and I've just done a more orange version, the mix of the two, and then I've just come in with a very dark value here that's suggesting bits of information within the field structure in the foreground, just to give it a bit more added interest overall and breaks it all up. Just going to pop in with one or two extra darks on some of these trees, and they will be darker than some of them in the background, so there will be almost two levels of trees that you can see. Just breaking it up a little bit. Now that got a little bit blown there. That's not a problem, but it did just bleed away a little bit, so I'm just going to try and stem some of that. If it doesn't bleed too far, of course, then it looks more like a tree or something in the distance. And I'm just going to come in and put a bit of dark through here where it got lost at that point, and maybe another little tree or something in there, just breaking up some of this information. Just a very quick demonstration for you, I hope. I won't know until always, I don't know until I look at the footage and see how long it took me to do it. But there you are. I think that's pretty much describes what I wanted. We could put some more banding through here, and I'm tempted to just, now that's drying off, just come back in. Could be a big mistake. I'm just going to test how wet that is. I think what I'll do, I'm just going to dry it off before I come back in with that. Okay, so I'm just going to come in with a bit more cobalt, bit of indigo, more cobalt, more indigo, and just see where this is going to take us. So the painting has been dried, and so we're not wetting wet anymore. We're now going to be layering over the top of this previous pigment that we put on, and I think that just will help reinforce a couple of the areas here where we've got that lovely rain. I want to drop that down to the horizon again and take that off like so, and that lovely band, I'm just going to take it up this way. Nice strong band, bit more water, and soften some of these marks because there's not a lot of water going on here now, so it's going to cause me issues with hard edges if I'm not too careful. So just going to come in and just finish this side off here. Bit more water, could have done with a bit more pigment left, but we'll make that. I don't want to make this too wet because it will cause lovely horrible looking marks going on, so just trying to be a little bit careful. But we have got that lovely dark edge to this cloud. That's what I was trying to get back in. And whether or not I've done it, or whether or not I should have left well alone, once this dries up it will tell me. But here we've already got a suggestion of a bit of a bleed back, so I'm just gently taking the edge off so that can't do too much more damage than it's already done. Just leave that like so, and I'm going to leave it there, I think. Okay, so it's a very quick little demonstration about painting a cloud. I hope you got something from that one, and if you did, then don't forget to please like this video, subscribe to it if you're not already a subscriber, and click that bell icon. It tells you each and every time I upload a new video. Don't forget my live streams, which are a Monday and a Friday at 7 PM London time. Look forward to having you there, and say hi in the chat if you would like to. And also, if you want a lot more from me, there's a lot more to be found on my Patreon. Details in the description below. Take a look at that, and if you want to climb on board with that, you'd be so welcome. It'd be fantastic. In the meantime, happy painting, stay safe, catch you all in the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.